a good in-ear mix? Is like what do we do here?
The thing for me is to not just get the mix and have a starting mix, but to reset your mix routinely. And once a month, if you're working once a week or every week, whatever it is, you want to make sure that, because you tweak as you go, especially if you're on a satellite
mid-show,
mixer, on a personal mixer,
you're tweaking. Yeah,
there are things that happen. People get more energy, less energy. They make adjustments, and you make adjustments. So when you're starting at the beginning, when you either reset or if you're just getting into this, the thing to make sure is that you're starting with the cleanest possible signal. So you turn everything down. Don't look at what's on there. One of the things the ME1 does really well is if you hold the shift key down and you turn the knob, everything is controlled and you can bring everything down at once.
Wait, seriously? I didn't know that.
Yep.
That thing's got so many hidden features. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really cool thing to be able to do that.
So you can just bring it all down.
Everything. Oh. Now, if you have you don't have enough snare, you hold that shift key, you turn everything down, then you go to your snare either in the group or that, and then you can bring that and then bring the master up. Then you don't have to turn your snare up. Once you're at unity on that thing, if you go beyond that, that's where you end up with your noise. So if you use your master volume, that's one thing that people forget is that's where you contain that distortion, because even though what's inside most of those little satellite mixers is a little chip amplifier, it doesn't have a lot of muscle to it, but it's enough that if you set it up so that it doesn't hiss and make noise when you start, that's the magic. So how do we do this? I think of it this way. If you walk in to... So
you're saying start from zero?
Yep. I say all zero. We start from all zeros.
Okay.
You assuming you're hardwired, and you turn up your whatever amplifier, whether it's an ME1 or a P16 or whatever it is, turn it up. If it hisses, turn it up until it hisses and then back off. And you want to back off even a little further than that so that you have room to turn up another 5 or 10% if you need it. So you find your noise floor and you start with silence.
Oh,
really,
wow.
Really important to start with silence. Okay.
Okay.
Then you start, because everybody's complaint is I can't hear myself. The more me thing is always a thing. So you start with you. You start with your voice or your instrument. Drummers, we do a little differently, but whatever that is, you start with you. One of the things the ME1 does, and a few of them will do this, is that on an ME1 you can set up a group, so your drums can be on preset 1 as you're seeing there.
Sure.
And then you click on group, and then you can do kick, snare, hat, rack, floor, overhead, left, overhead, right. And then you have like a bus, like you have a group that is your whole drum group.
Yes.
So even within that, you can make your adjustments. But then if you're playing on a quiet song and you're switching to hot rods or brushes or whatever, you can just bring your drum group up a little bit. But you need to have the room. The turn up thing is really dangerous.
Sure.
So if you start with silence, if you're on a wireless, even more so, you make sure you're not clipping. You make sure you're at -5-ish on your meter so that you have a little room if you need it. One of the things that people don't realize, and this is a really important thing about all these little mixers, and especially with the wireless, is that even though you may have the sense of true stereo, particularly if you're using older systems, you're not really getting, they don't really have that separation in the way that the wireless works or in the way the little chip amplifiers work.
Yeah.
So you have this perception of really hard stereo, and there's crosstalk and there's distortion you don't need. So because of that, when you're building your mix, I think of me first.
Yep.
Whatever if it's my voice or if it's a voice, and I won't repeat what you've said on the show 1,000 times. If it's you and your guitar and you do it just a little bit left and right, maybe 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock, not even that far, just so there's separation.
Yes.
If it's me as the drummer, my snare is 11 o'clock. It's exactly what you see. Nothing is hard panned. Your hi-hat would be 10 o'clock. Your toms would be maybe just off of 12, 2, 3. Nothing's super hard panned, and that's nice and clean and even. But for a singer, for a keyboard player, whatever. Okay, so you start with mono. Once you have you, then you want bass, assuming you're not sitting on top of your sub.
Yeah.
Okay. You have, as a singer or as a member of the band who's not the drummer, you have kick and snare, which again, you want a little split, especially if your vocal is in the center you and your guitar are not quite, 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock.
I have learned if I have stereo in-ears, and
always should if you can.
If you can.
Always if you can.
But there will be plenty of scenarios where you cannot.
Right.
And so, but if I can have stereo, my default is to have nothing in the middle, not even my vocal, right? And that way nothing gets muddy. If I need to put something in the middle because I need it ever present and like drilling into my head like a click track, or on a musical theater gig, I might put the MD mic, the music director's mic, dead center so that I never miss a cue from him, right?
If you start with only what you need, and you talked about this a couple of weeks ago, if you start with what you really, really need as your essentials, your melody, your bass player, your own instrument, and yourself, if you have more than 3 vocal mics open on stage, you're going to get enough bleed from that.
It's all coming in.
Right. And so you save yourself your brain being overwhelmed with information. The other thing is it gives you a better mix. It gives you better levels.
A good, just like mixing front of house, your point about having, 3, 4, even 1, but the more the merrier, live vocal mic on stage. If they've got drum overheads coming through a vocal mic, they're not going to turn up the drum overheads in the front of house and add to that. They're going to listen to what's there and add as necessary or dial in as necessary. Do the same thing for your ears. Don't just assume that you need everything. I mean, and I say this knowing that if you are on a gig with me, you will hear me do this to it. Like go against my own advice with a sound engineer. If we have, 3 minutes to dial in a mix on a sound check and I'm not in control of my own mix, I will tell them, all right, give me, my vocal at, like you said, 75% or whatever. Give me all the other vocals at 60% and all the instruments at 50%. I can communicate that quickly. Is it exactly what I would want? No. Is it the best mix for me? No. Did I just communicate something efficiently that is going to get me from now until the end of the set? Yes.